So archetypes do everything to make the emotional impact and that connection we have to have with our reader to make our writing land, to make it relatable. And it will also improve our consistency, cohesion, and credibility. So that's a lot of heavy lifting for one literary term. Okay, thank you. Pop-ups. All right. Can we move on now? Russell, what happens if it doesn't move on now? Oh, Russell.
I think you need to click on it and get it focused so that you can advance slide, perhaps.
Let me do this.
Okay.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah,
I would have bought you a ticket to Ireland. All right. We'll share. We'll try this again. All right. Please move, God. There we go. Thanks. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the tarot cards. They were just a deck of playing cards in the 1400s, which they needed some games after all the famine and disease and death and mayhem. And so they had this game called Tarot, and they played it with tarot cards. And it was just like playing rummy or Uno or, you know, slapjack or whatever they play over in Europe, but they didn't have any mystical attachment to them. It wasn't until the Age of Enlightenment and the pushback to necromancy and all these other kind of ways to tell the future, and they came up with cartomancy. And that's when people started using them to divine the future. So again, the tarot card is interesting and fascinating, but we're going to look at and talk about just about the major arcana, which is the first 22 cards. And they represent all the major life stages, and you can kind of put them in order with a hero's journey, which we'll talk about. But let's go back and think about story and storytelling. So something happens to us in our human condition, and it essentially means nothing. It only means something of what we ascribe to it. So we make up a story about what it means. We have a dream. We have we see a black cat in the road, and we have to decide what that means to our lives. So the story we create makes up our reality, and it creates our world. And that's what we've been doing since time immemorial. We have to figure out a way to understand, where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? We want stories to tell us and give us comfort and direction and purpose. And so the stories are what we tell and continue to tell. And if they resonate with our reader, then something magical happens. Because everything is a story. Money is a story. Democracy is a story. Corporations are stories. So what we tell have to kind of resonate with the receivers with regard to what archetypes we use, because characters, plots, and themes have to go in a certain direction. If they veer off that pattern, it won't ring true. If you haven't read Yuval Noah Harari, I recommend you do. He's a historian from Israel, and he wrote Sapiens, Homo Deus, and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And he says that we use stories to make sense of our world, and the simpler the story, the better. That's always the case. If plots get too complicated, we lose focus. We want a simple story to tell us something that we need to hear. Carl Jung said, of course, all ideas go back to archetypes. And so archetypes we've been talking a lot of, but let's take a look at some of the archetypes that work for us. Someone describe a pirate to me. Pirate. You hear the word pirate, what do you think of?
Pirates, peg legs.
Peg legs. Right. Hats. We got right. Clean or dirty? Trustworthy or not? Right, exactly. And so those are the archetypes that are embedded in our subconscious. When you talk about mother, you don't think about a whole lot of things that are negative. Mothers should be idealistically, but that's how archetypes are, nurturing, warm, right? They've made you something delicious in the kitchen. They're not going to punch you in the face, right? Unless you deserve it. But anyways, but archetypes they're sunk deep, and they go across all time and space. So with our pirates, I don't know how many of you imagined Egyptian pirates or Asian pirates, right? Johnny Depp is sexy. We wouldn't have put sexy in our list of adjectives for pirates, but he is. Anyways, but that's how it goes. Now, the difference between an archetype and a stereotype is very slight. Archetypes is kind of where we begin. We'll begin with a pirate, but we'll make him sexy, right? If a pirate is just a peg leg parrot, scallywag, right? And that's where we end. That's a stereotype. So that's the difference. They're similar, but if one is where you kind of launch your character and you can go and have it go in different directions, but kind of maintain the integrity of the archetype. And then stereotype is where you limit that character or theme or plot, and that's all it goes. All right, and here's the blonde bombshell, right? We know what a blonde bombshell is. She's going to be short. She's going to be hypersexual. She's going to be kind of fun and flirty. And we've seen that from the 1900s all the way until today, the blonde bombshell. All right, but here are the 12 that Young came up with. And I'm sure a lot of your characters that you've read or written match one of these guys. We'll take the magician, for example. Magician, corporations brand themselves and tell stories about themselves. The magician who wants to leave a mark by using power is Disney, right? Other corporation names, like Apple is the creator and Dove is innocent and BBC is the sage, right? That's, how they're telling their story. And it has all that weight of the centuries through time and space behind it. There's also a dark side. If you're going to have a magician, the flip side of that is the sorcerer, because we have to have duality, the yin and the yang, right? And so when you write a character or when we read a character, we're going to see the shades of their dark side of their character, whatever that character may be. And then, of course, Young talked about how our characters and how ourselves have this anima and animus, which means we have male and female characteristics on a sliding scale. We have the shadow, which is basically the id, the dark side of whoever that character is. And then, of course, the persona are all the masks that we wear. If you think I talk like this every day, you're kidding yourself. I talk like, like Virginian, like forget it. But it's the persona, the mask that we all put on, and our characters do as well. We also have archetypal stories, right? From rags to riches, the kind of the Cinderella story or the quest. And they're told over and over again. Voyage and return, that's the Odyssey. But we've told that story in many, many different ways. So you could look at your stories that you've written or read and kind of plug them into these archetypes. Kurt Vonnegut says there's only 6, and that's okay because it's Kurt Vonnegut. But he draws them, and you can see the plotting on how you tell a lot of stories, but they go in different shapes. And these are your 6 basic shapes. Shakespeare wrote almost nothing original. He borrowed stories, but told them better. And that's kind of what we do. We're not going to come up with a new plot. We're not going to come up with new characters. We're going to come up with new inventive ways to take what existed and what people love, which we've always loved, which we've told in stories from way back. And we're going to tell it better with a new kind of modern twist. All right. Okay. So if you haven't read Joseph Campbell's A Hero with a Thousand Faces, highly recommend. He talks primarily about how the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek. And the hero's journey goes like this. And this is the plot of every TV show, movie, video game, whatever. We start off at the status quo, and we're going to be called to adventure. There's something we have to do. Do we go on a date? Are we going to murder somebody? Are we going to go, steal a treasure? But there's this adventure that we're all on. So that's where we start, status quo, call to adventure. We're going to refuse the call. No, I can't, or I don't want to. Why should I go? It's scary to go out of your ordinary world into a special or unusual world. We'll have a mentor. We're going to find someone who's going to help us through the threshold to go somewhere we need to be. So we're going to cross the threshold. And now we're down here where we're going to be tested. We're going to have friends. We're going to have enemies. We're going to have helpers. We're going to have people that hurt us. And then we're going to go to the part where we have this cave that is going to be the darkest night of our soul. And we're going to almost die, literally or physically, right? For all the Marvel movies that are exactly the same, there's always that part where the hero is just about to die and then, of course, comes out of it. And when they come out of this pit of despair, they're going to have a pathia. I can't say it. I'm Virginian. Someone, that's it. That's the word, right? And it's being raised to the level of a god, but basically it means that you're raised with this new knowledge. So if you go on this date you didn't want to, you discover something about yourself. All right, maybe maybe you were stood up and learned something about yourself that's a little bit deeper. And so you have this knowledge and you go forward. So you have this elixir that's going to cure, or you have this treasure that you've been seeking for, and you return home. But you don't necessarily want to go home. Maybe you want to stay in this special world, but you eventually go home and you have knowledge of both this old world of yours and the new world, and you return this knowledge, and then you've kind of risen to a higher plane. That's pretty much every plot, right? For the most part, it's hard to get away from this because that's what we're used to. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And so we can go through a lot of different movies and TV shows and look to see, is there a hero? Yes, there's a hero. Is there a helper or a mentor going to help us through the worst of the worst? Absolutely. Is there an enemy? Yes, and he'll be glorious. Is there a threshold guardian that kind of blocks our way, either coming or going from this new world? Sure. Is there a shapeshifter? Is there someone like Han Solo who's a wonderful character, like the trickster, who's we're not going to know who, if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but he'll be a lot of fun to watch. And of course, the trickster straight on is just for comic relief, because you can't have intensity. You can't just be awful. You're going to have moments where you're going to have a little fun with your characters. All right. But again, you're going to see this over and over again. And this is the man that came up with it, right? Joseph Campbell. And it's really interesting, especially when you use archetypes, and especially in the tarot cards, you're going to see the tarot cards line up exactly with the hero's journey. All right. I'm going to skip that because that's a lot of words. I'm just going to move on. But I'm going to steal from Michael Pritsuara, who's a member of our group who just says amazing things. He talks about how writing and reading are both creative acts, and that writers start stories and readers finish them. And that is t-shirt worthy, Michael Pritsuara, if you're listening. All right. And then for me, I believe, that if we're going to connect and make our writing or our reading resonate, it's a two-way street. We got to use archetypes, right, to connect, right? Because people love those. We've loved them, for millennia. And if we use stereotypes, that turns people off, where it's just this character or plot is in a box and it's not expanding. And so as we're using these archetypes in our writing, we should allow space for readers to be participative. The reason why we still teach Shakespeare 400 years later is because his work is so elastic. You could take all the characters in Hamlet and either make them good guys or bad guys based on the reading and the way he doesn't have it nailed down, so it can't be expanded upon. Do we feel sorry for Gertrude, Hamlet's mother, or do we hate her? I hate her. But it's, everyone gets their own take on it. So whenever there's a new movie, for example, Macbeth that came out with Michael Fassbender, he made Macbeth a victim of post-traumatic stress disorder, which makes sense, right? He's not just a good guy who made bad choices until he was evil. He could have been mentally ill. So again, is there textual evidence to support that? There is. So again, we have to use archetypes and let them breathe and be expandable so our readers can put themselves and connect to the work. All right. Otherwise, this is what I see every day. If kids don't feel it or get it, they don't care, right? And archetypes are a way to kind of lasso them in. Little tip here about symbols versus archetypes. Archetypes are these psychic patterns that we just have in our subconscious, but symbols are how these are expressed. For example, we have the hero, right? And there's the hero and all of what he brings to the table. But if he pulls out a sword, that's a symbol of his courage and strength. So again, they kind of work hand in glove, but archetype is more the kind of the holistic part there. All right. So let's go back to tarot. So if I was a medium and I'm dealing cards for you, and I have a card that's reversed or inverted, that's a big difference, right? It's going to mean the exact opposite of the card as if it was just straight on, which kind of touches on with the persona of having masks and have your character being masked of who they're showing their true selves to, or these shadow repressed id characters that don't reveal themselves until later. So it's interesting to look at tarot cards and see the reversals, because those are your foils. Foils are characters that amplify qualities in your main characters. So if I have a Sherlock Holmes, I need a Dr. Watson. They balance each other, right? One, if it was just Sherlock Holmes, we would be bored with him. But Dr. Watson brings out his interesting sides. I'm going to skip Marvel characters, but Lion King or Hamlet for that most part. So personality, values, physical traits, and behavior, foils can contrast with all that behavior. And you'll see that in some of the tarot cards that we're going to look at. Okay. So if we went to, I'm not sure what part of town you'd get your palm read, probably where we had dinner last night. That was kind of sketchy. But anyways, the simplest deal is past, present, and future, where you have just 3 piles, because that's what people are kind of concerned about. When we have those 3 a.m. conversations with ourselves or with our characters, we wonder, where do they come from? Why are we here? Or why are they here? And where are they going? And so having Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 is kind of interesting, when you have that exposition, getting to know the characters, and something happens, and then the action rises, and we have this great climax, and then the kind of the crash and burn, or just wrapping it up in the denouement. So it's interesting how things and series of threes tend to repeat themselves throughout. Well, let's have some fun. So of all the tarot cards, and we're talking about just the major arcana here, the main ones, they're numbered 0 through 21. So there's 22 cards. Does anyone know what the first card is? Card 0. Who said the Fool? Brilliant. Very good. Did you just know that because you're super smart? Perfect. Oh my gosh, I found my tribe. That's good. Yeah, the Fool, and it totally makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Here is the Fool. Can you guys kind of see him a little bit? Am I in the way? Yeah, can you see it ish? All right, look at our guy there. Okay. And this is, again, think about the hero's journey we talked about. You're in your normal world and you have to go do something. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Sean, do you have any idea what you're doing putting on a conference in Dublin? So we're going to call this Sean here. All right. So Sean, where's Sean looking in this Fool? Where's he looking? Do you see the face? Just right. Just he's having a lark. He's having a great time. Where is he walking? What's his feet about to do? Exactly. And that's, again, asking someone out on a date, going on a heist or whatever adventure your characters are going on. This is what the first step is. I don't know what I'm doing. He's carrying a knapsack. Look at the little dog. Go on. Come on, buddy. Just, you can do it. It's fine. This is Russell and this is me. So that's kind of how we started. But what a great way to start. So if we look at the cards straight on, the Fool is taking risks with innocence and wonder. He's a good guy. We're going to go with him. He's honest. He's genuinely happy. It's just, fools fall in love, right? Fools go on quests. Once you have knowledge, maybe you're less foolish, but maybe a lot less adventurous. Now, if we're going to flip the card, if you get it upside down, he's kind of dumb, but willfully ignorant, dumb, and I'm from America. We know willfully ignorant. So I'm just saying. Right? Jim's like, boo, sorry. But there's the Fool. So what's our next adventure? Well, we'll look at card number. Do you know what card number 1 is? If you do, it's the Magician. Why am I teaching this? You should be up here. This is great. Look at my boy here. First of all, do you see any symbols? What symbols do you see? Jim, you want? Yeah, the infinity symbol over his head, right? That's kind of interesting. The pentagram is a good one we can tell our mothers this, the one that points upwards, right? We got flowers. Where is he pointing? Right, as in heaven, down below, up and down. He's got all kinds of tools that he uses. So that's a magician. But how interesting to have it right after being a fool, kind of starting this journey, that you have this kind of magical element show up. So the way it's described is this character has a lot of self-confidence. He's not reaching for his tools. He could, but he's using his own energy and his focus and his concentration to get it going. All right. Inverted is the flip side. So if you have one of your side characters and he is the magician that shows up to help your hapless main character on his way. If it's an inverted character, if you want to invert this, the dark side is that he's kind of a power crazy jerk, and that he's going to manipulate our character as well. So this sounds like any Dickens novel that you remember from having to read in high school. Yeah, some of those guys show up. The next one is the High Priestess. How interesting to have a woman and a woman of the priesthood show up at this early in the deck, because it goes through 22. So card 3 is the Priestess. There's all kinds of imagery. What does her dress look like? The bottom of it. Water, right? Because water, women, fluid. That's the same kind of archetype there. She's holding something in her hands. She's got a lot going on here. So this is the equivalent of a high priest, but a high priestess. Okay, so she keeps secrets. Calm, patient, the balance that we need so much of in life, and she's an agent for change and has this intuition. So again, as our character's getting going, we need someone who is a secret keeper, who's gonna help us along the way. The flip side of that is that she's going to take advantage of you again, and she's just tricky and manipulative. We're going to move on to the Empress. Another woman shows up here, and she's sitting on. You see that the symbols for Venus. and she has 12 stars in her hair. And again, whoever's making these cards up in the 1400s in Italy was having a blast. They're going to sink in a whole bunch of Judeo-Christian references. There's going to be Egyptian references. There's going to be all kinds of allusions to biblical and historical events there. But there's our Empress, and she's the lover, right? The lovers are coming, but she's brings love in general, either romantic or platonic. And she's a nurturer, because before you can go on any adventure, you need to get prepared, and she will prepare you. Flipping that is she's going to be overprotective, or jealous, or just plain old mean. We'll look at a couple more before I turn the time over here. Here we have the Emperor. All right. What looks strong here? Forceful. He's wearing armor underneath his robes. What kind of animals do you see? Yeah, right. Rams, not Aries. Did you ever date an Aries? Anyways. All right. Do you see any water at all? No. Exactly. Very good. Right. This is the law, right? The hard decisions, what has to happen, what has to occur. This is the daddy party, right? The structure and the order. And so he's in charge. There is a law, and it's fixed. It isn't as fluid as some of the other cards. And if it's inverted, he's just an egomaniac and kind of a bully. Let me go back here. Sorry. All right. This is the Pope. Look at the doubling here, the twos. We have two acolytes there at the bottom. We have two columns. What he's holding there, his feet. Look at the two keys just below his feet. All that doubling from an ecclesiastical leader. Interesting. What were the Italians doing in the 15th century? But he's the messenger between God and man. All right, he's the Pope. But he's also symbolizes the trickster and the teacher and the historian and the archivist. And if you want to flip that, it's the worst thing possible. You know, if you have both the state and religion together, and they just decide to turn on you, you're in a bad spot. So inflexible and unforgiving. But what a powerful, interesting character, either the law or the worst part of it. All right. Now the lovers. Do you see anything related to the Bible? Yeah, first couple chapters of Genesis, all right there. And so look at the mountain in the back. I don't know what that's supposed to represent. But this is everything you think it means. It means finding your tribe, finding your person, finding someone to trust more than anything, right? All relationships are built on trust. And finding someone, if you can find someone that you are romantically attached to, that you trust, I mean, that's the win-win-win. The inverted part is maybe misalignment, but also the idea that you can't really enter into any relationship without loving yourself first. But that's a great card. And again, I think we have romance almost in every genre, even in all the horror films that I watched growing up. Let's go with the Chariot. Chariot's kind of interesting in the fact that how is this chariot moving forward? Do you see any reins or any mechanism for this chariot to move forward? It doesn't. It has a couple of weird sphinxes there. You know, again, they must have had a lot of fun in black and white. And so the Chariot is interesting because this talks about how you have to move forward on your own volition. You have to get your confidence up and your charisma and be resourceful. You're not going to move in this chariot unless you do it yourself. Inverted means you're just passionate about chaos. There's no control and you're kind of spiraling. But if you can get it together and move forward in yourself, that is a way to go with mastery and control. All right, here's the strength. It's a woman for strength. Any thoughts on that? Sounds accurate. Okay, right. And again, infinity as well. And it's interesting to, even to look back at the culture and why would infinity be over this woman's head as well? And is that lion terrifying, or are they they're having a good time there? I just find it so interesting that 600 years ago they had women being the strong ones. We need to kind of relearn that on some level. So there's the theme there. So true strength comes from within, and that compassion, control, being gentle, that's all goes with strength, right? The gentle strength. And if we flip it, and the opposite is being a coward or being bullheaded. Are you guys sick of the tarot cards? You want a couple more? Couple more? We're all going to hell. So we'll see you there. My favorite, the Hermit. Yeah. Is anyone a hermit in here? Just me? Okay. Look at this little lamp there. Is it like is it a beam of light or just enough? Just enough to have his feet. Do you see, is it warm or cold? And where is he looking? He's looking down to see where he can step so he doesn't misstep. The hermit is an interesting card. It's the idea about how, loneliness and solitude are not the same. And that sometimes we need to be alone to get the answers we need. When our characters crash and burn and they're by themselves, they've either offended someone or they've been exiled, and they have that time to wander in the wilderness to kind of get to know who they are, that time for reflection, and looking for wisdom and kind of a spiritual quest, but it has to be done alone, right? It's hard to answer for ourselves or for our characters when you have a room full of loud people. So the inverted, of course, is that he's just alone and no one's going to help him. Sorry, hermit. But right side up, interesting guy, right? Interesting guy. Okay, here's the Wheel of Fortune. And I wish I had copies of this card for you. Do you see a major civilization not represented here? It's really interesting how much is packed in here, especially the symbols of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We were just at the Trinity Library and some of the museums and some of the museum where they had the one they dug out of the bog. Do you remember? I should have written that down. But anyways, they had the symbols that was similar to this, from the Psalter that they found in the bog. They had papyrus in it. I don't know why they had papyrus, but that's kind of cool. But they had the same symbols from that time period when it was dug up. So obviously that symbolism for the four gospels is very, very powerful. But then I don't know why the devil's surfing on this Wheel of Fortune, and we have a snake, and there's a sphinx at the top, and there's a lot going on with this card. So what is the deal with the Wheel of Fortune? And our characters know this, and we know this. The idea that our fortunes rise and fall, and we either ride the wheel and let it go, and if we stop it, it's going to crush us. We have to go with the flow, right? This too shall pass. And the card talks about how change is going to happen, and we can either accept it or it's going to go hard for us. Flipped means we've missed some opportunities or we're resistant to change, and our apathy and not really moving forward will keep us stuck. All right, Justice. Oh, she's boring. Let's go to, there's the Hangman. This is an interesting one. Does he look upset? Could he get out of that one loop around his ankle if he really wanted to? So if you have a character in your writing that takes a bullet for everybody else, right? They're the Christ figure. They're the ones that sacrifice themselves, right? Anyone read Lord of the Flies, right? So the idea where you have someone that is going to take all the sins upon themselves, but the idea of letting go, right? And then before you can move forward, that's a good one. Oh, there's my guy. All right, there's death. That's kind of fun. Death in the tarot just means change. That's it. It's not super scary. It just means change. And people are like, hey, death, how are you? I mean, they're not that scared. You have this religious leader looking a little terrified, but Death's just like, hey, I mean, he's not really like, I'm going to kill you all. He's like, I'm here, so that's how change is in our lives. We have Temperance, which I love, making margaritas there by the river. And a couple more before we leave here. There's the Devil. The Devil's never a good card. Do you see a similar Genesis thing going on here at the bottom? And the fact that the devil is Pan and has these chicken feet, kind of interesting. And so the devil's not a good card unless it's inverted, right? But the big note about the devil card is that who can make better hells for ourselves than ourselves? Ask Samuel Beckett. He wrote a lot of interesting plays about that. And then, oops, that's my stop talking. All right, but we'll end on a good note. We'll end up with the World. The last card is the World, which is we have the infinity symbol again in the red bows up and down. We have the four symbols of the Gospels again, and the idea that everything's a cycle, and that when we go through this hero's journey, we're completing the cycle, and it's the act of becoming. So that's it. You guys survived. And we're still here. We didn't turn into frogs. Good. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now.